What do you see on my screen right now?
I see the front page of the PowerPoint.
Okay, so it's not like the you're not seeing like the like that second page where it says the next slide.
Nope.
You see the real
It's the
stuff.
first page.
Okay.
And FYI, we are recording right now.
Yeah.
It's an automatic recording.
Thanks. Cheryl had me send it to council right before.
I saw that, but you just sent the sign of the register for the link, right?
No, the link is in there.
Oh, the link is in there.
Bottom.
Okay. All right. Well, that is definitely something that causes some difficulties
Why?
because we have a list of everybody to try to keep track of who all is in.
You'll know if they're a council member. You'll see it. It's not for them to distribute. It's just for them to join.
Right. As long as they don't distribute it.
No, they won't. I mean, I literally just sent it. I don't even think they're going to join, but Cheryl just told me to get it to them.
Okay. All right. Well, I asked Cheryl to not do that. I guess I got to change my, how do I do this? Choose my background. There we go. Okay, I'm going to let Shantae in.
Do you have people like pop in the chat, like who they are, where they're from, or they get a sense of the room?
Sure, we can do that.
I'll type it in.
No, I can do that.
If I move real fast, my blue jacket disappears. How are you doing, Shantae?
Oh, I'm good. I'm here.
Thanks for being a trooper.
No problem. I'm using my Surface because my email and internet is still very slow from whatever happened with ETS this morning. So if I cut in and out, it's because I got a situation going on over here.
All right, understood. We understand a situation. Okay. Is there anything that I need to add, like any little notes I need to put on this that I need to remember to say?
No, you have the note about the space, the physical features might be.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I have that in here.
Okay.
I know we talked on the phone earlier today, but I guess to make the artist feel more comfortable. Just make it known that we're not talking about the artist's specific designs that they have in mind, just that we're here to kind of gather feedback of what the community probably would like.
Okay. Happy to do that.
Update the guy emailed me back and said, thanks for the clarification. So I guess he's fine now. I don't know.
Okay.
He must not have been paying attention during that really long phone call we all had.
Well, he came at the end.
Oh, that was the guy at the end. I was wondering if that was the guy. Okay.
Yeah.
Is Paul on yet?
He is. He just came in. I will let him in. Great.
Hi, Paul.
Okay, I just want to give you a heads up, Catherine, that I just got an email from one of the artists saying that Michael I don't know how to say his last name.
Coppage.
Yeah, he'll be
That is-
speaking instead of
That's Landis, right?
yes, but he'll be speaking instead of actual Alandis. Alandis Powell was going to speak, but
Okay.
Michael is going to be speaking instead.
So it is actually Michael.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. We've got him.
Okay.
We've got him. It was weird. It was like there was something that I got that said that Alandis's email was Michael's email. And I have multiple emails with her name on it, but then one of them is the Michael Coppage. So that's fine. Whoever wants to speak for them, it doesn't,
I think what happened was that they have speakers. They just gave me their names. They didn't give me their email addresses.
Gotcha.
So we will have to see who's David Wilson per se and who is, I think most of them are actually who I usually have contact with on the team anyway. But I think there's just maybe one or two. I think the one from, I think Gordon and Hugh, their partners. I think Marlon Hall is not the artist. I think he's someone who does the engagement pieces for them.
Okay.
And David Wilson from, I think, Al Britton and Al Britton Lee. But I don't know his email, but I'm just letting you know, I think those are the people that are not the actual artists.
No, and if at any point, I mean, I have them noted who the official speaker is, but if at any point during the time this changes, feel free to jump in and,
Okay.
when we're doing that, when we get to the point of the artists, I might even say to you, Shantae, is there anything, has anything changed? Are we ready to go? And if you have any changes for me, let me know.
Okay.
Paul, do you have everything you need? You're on mute.
Yeah, as far as I know, I have what you sent me.
Okay. Catherine, do you want us to start right, when you let everybody in, or you want to give it a minute for people arriving?
We'll give it a minute, and it'll take a minute for people to, we'll take a minute to have us let everybody in anyway.
All right.
It takes a second for everything to connect. I'm going in, looking at who's already signed in and who's in the waiting room and checking them off. Marla Fuller joined us also, just so you know. You want me to let her in now, Paul? Paul, is she here as part of your team, or is she here to participate?
No, she's not participating. She's just here as part of my team.
Okay, I'll let her in right now then.
Hi, Marla. Is she here?
I think.
Hello.
Hey, Marla.
Thanks for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome.
So Marla is our communications person, so she's here in that capacity.
Great. Okay, so do we have everyone from the city who is? We have 19 people in the waiting room.
Is that including the artists or no?
Yes, there are a lot of artists who are here. There are a couple of names that I'm not they're not recognizing as being signed up. So we'll just kind of have to figure out who they are.
What are the names? We might know them.
Janet Goodman.
Shannon is with Gordon Huther.
Do I have her on this list?
No, Marlon Hall is going to speak for that team, but I don't know what her role is for the team, but I've been communicating with her.
Okay, we wanted everybody to give us their names just so that it takes a lot to manage a meeting like this online. So, it always just helps us to know who's here. And oh, Joelle's here, so I'm gonna let Joelle in. And is Jeff Stein joining us, or is Joelle joining on behalf? Oh, Jeff's in too. There we go. I'm just gonna make sure that, oh, and there's Morgan. I just want to make sure that we have all the city team in before we go. Is there anyone else from the city that we're expecting to join us before we get going?
I see Kelly Carr in the waiting
Yeah,
room.
Kelly and Shannon Price.
Let's get her in. Yep.
And
Alright.
see if Cheryl is on there or not. Can't remember if she's coming in or not.
I can't see either Shannon Price or Cheryl.
Okay.
Well, it is 6:03. How do you feel about getting going, guys? Paul, are you ready? You are first up introducing us and then introducing Kendra to show the video.
I'm introducing the artist. I'm introducing art.
Yes, and then also I think Chandra, you're showing the video right after that.
Yeah, so you'll see here your slides. It's just you while you're talking, and then the list of the artists.
Okay, so I'm introducing the artist and not our team, because I don't have the list of our team.
Right, just the artists.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Okay. Whenever we're ready to go, we can admit everybody. Are we ready? If you're not speaking, please stay on mute. And if you need anything, do a chat like Kelly is doing right now. She is having technical difficulties, but she can chat. Are we good to go? All right, everyone have a great meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, Paul, it looks like almost everyone is in the meeting.
Good evening to everyone, to our citizens and to our artists for this community engagement session for the Martin Luther King Jr. statue project. And just as a bit of history, there are several reasons that this project is important to the city of Cincinnati, to the country for that matter, is because Dr. King had a special relationship with the city of Cincinnati, beginning in the 50s, when all hope was lost. We were trying to elect our first Black mayor, the Honorable Theodore M. Berry. Dr. King was called in. He came, and later on, Theodore M. Berry became our first Black mayor. Not only that, but went on to serve in the Johnson administration and do many great things himself. The other thing I think that you should that is important is Cincinnati certainly has many of its civil rights icons. Certainly, the Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth, who stood side by side with Dr. Martin Luther King. And then lastly, the Progressive National Baptist Convention, of which Dr. King was a member, was founded here by my late father, Dr. L. Venture Booth. And why is that important? In that day and time, many of our bodies of faith belong to a convention. The convention that Dr. King belonged to at that time, his father and others, essentially dismissed him because of his stand on civil rights, and they did not want to take a stand on civil rights. Fast forward to 1961, the Progressive National Baptist Convention was founded here in Cincinnati, which in the faith world we gave Dr. King a denominational home, and not only that, a platform to be able to platform for his movement. And so with that, I'd like to introduce the artists that we have with us. And let me just I just want to end, and I'm going to read quickly a quote that I think sets the backdrop and the discussion for today. And this is one of Dr. King's, of course, many great quotes. And it says this: "There comes a time when we must take a position that is neither safe nor politic nor popular, but he must take it because his conscience tells him that it is right." That's how Dr. King lived his life, and that's how he urges all of us to live our lives. So this monument to Dr. King will stand in the Avondale community, which is the community where I grew up, community that knew riots in early years and subsequent years after that. So it's very significant because it will serve as a symbol of what this city stands for in terms of freedom, justice, and equality. And with that, I will introduce the artists that will be looking at this project. And we're very fortunate to have such great talent in our midst to take a look at this project. And I will introduce them as follows. It's All Britton Lee, LLC, Artworks, Black Art Speaks, Gordon Huther and Partners Incorporated, Humanity Memorial Incorporated, John Hare Monumental Sculpture LLC, and Core Villa Guild Incorporated. So we are happy to have these very talented individuals on board who are taking a look at this project and taking it to the next level. Thank you.
The City of Cincinnati is seeking to create a world-class piece of art dedicated to the memorial of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. In 1987, the Baptist Ministers Conference of Cincinnati, in partnership with the City of Cincinnati and the Jewish Hospital, dedicated a memorial commemorating the life and legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. The memorial was located at the corner of Martin Luther King Drive and Reading Road in the Avondale neighborhood. But in 2017, the Martin Luther King Drive and I-71 Interchange Improvement Project required this memorial to be relocated. So the city moved the memorial to MLK Park in North Avondale with the promise to build a new memorial along Martin Luther King Drive to anchor the heart of Avondale. In May of 2021, Cincinnati City Council dedicated $1 million to fund a new memorial project. The final memorial will be unveiled next year to commemorate the 60th anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. 7 artists have been shortlisted to propose a design that engages the senses, stimulates the conversation, and inspires all to higher levels of achievement and greatness. The design should embody the concept of diversity, equality, and inclusion. It must create a positive impact, present a unifying voice for all, and build lasting trust and fellowship. It should create a standard of excellence for directing the neighborhood's potential and future physical development. And finally, it will proclaim a shared narrative by honoring the city's heritage and envisioning the future. To that end, we invite you to share your hopes, feelings, and reflections inspired by Dr. King to be echoed in this important display.
I believe I'm up next. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm Shantae Randolph. Some of you, the artists, I was that floating voice in the void that you now see. So for those who may not know about this process, I'll give you a little bit of background around the solicitation of kind of how we got here today. I believe in August of 2021, we did a request for qualifications, basically a call for artists to see what artists would be interested in being a part of this process to create a memorial for Martin Luther King Jr. And then in October 21, we had that part of the solicitation closed. And so we received about 26 proposals. Out of those 26, we had 21 responsive ones that we decided to review to see if, we wanted to continue to see what they would provide for us with the qualifications that they had. And then after that, we narrowed it down to 7 artists who were introduced earlier by Mr. Paul Booth. So we're pretty much here today just to talk about, to see what the community is interested in for this memorial project. As you see on the screen here, the next steps for this project, which is today, we have the community engagement sessions. There's one today and there's one next week on, I believe, Tuesday, 4/5. And then on 4/29, that will be the community engagement completion date. So some of the artists, if the community is interested in, they'll be reaching out to you to kind of engage further in conversation with you all if you're open to that. I think Miss Catherine Kojers will kind of speak on that piece a little bit later today. And then on June 1st, that will be the RFP submission date. So request for proposals. So the 7 artists that we shortlisted, they will be submitting a proposal or a design concept and even a maquette of the design that they're going to submit to us to see, if we're interested in that. On 6/27, the city will award to that specific one artist. And then hopefully by 8/28/2023, the new memorial will be unveiled, which will be the 60th anniversary of Dr. King's I Had a Dream speech. And I think that is everything of my portion.
Thank you, Shantae. We appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited to have you here with us this evening to have this fantastic conversation. And I want to thank Paul Booth for his really inspirational introduction for us tonight. It really helped set the stage of, I think, what we're looking to talk about, which is how we honor the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In the city of Cincinnati and in Avondale and Uptown specifically. I also want to give a shout out to City Cable, Cincinnati City Cable, and the Department of Transportation and Engineering for helping put together that great video and the drone. Did everybody enjoy watching the cars going backwards? I thought that was kind of a fun trick. I don't know that I could maneuver that through that intersection, but the magic of drones. But I think that gave you a good idea of what the site currently looks like and sort of the space that we're dealing with. I do want to point out to you that right now there are kind of some walls and a shape to the site that are not necessarily set in stone. They are currently made of stone, but they are not set in stone. And so when we have this conversation tonight, we want you to really kind of put on your creativity caps and really be thinking about how that space might be used. The space is also adjacent to a development that is planned in the future. I believe that we have, or had, let's see, we have a representative. Yes, we do. Krista Brosie's here, a representative from the development team that is putting together that development. And from what we understand, there's a little bit of flexibility there as well. So again, don't feel completely penned in by what we showed you in the video. Again, I probably haven't introduced myself yet. I'm Catherine Kojers. I'm with the Department of City Planning and Engagement, and along with Alex Peppers, who, Alex, if you want to give a little wave, we're both here to help facilitate tonight. Alex is probably going to turn his camera off in a minute because he's going to be taking really, really detailed notes about our conversation, and so that we can really get as much as we can out of this evening. I just want to talk a little bit about how we're going to spend the bulk of this meeting. So for about the next 30 minutes, we are going to have a conversation for those of you who are residents and community members and community stakeholders here in Cincinnati. We are going to be just really having a conversation about Dr. King and about the memorial and about Avondale and the city and Uptown, and really what you envision, and in some ways, what are your expectations of a memorial at this site? And then we're going to spend, and what we hope to get from that conversation is your feelings, your thoughts, your hopes, your vision, your dreams, again, sort of your expectations, what you hope to see. And we have, as Paul Booth mentioned, we have a number of artist teams who are here on the call tonight as well. And they're going to be listening to you during that first 30 minutes. And hopefully, getting some understanding. And really, we also hope getting some inspiration from you and your thoughts and your stories. So we're going to then spend the next 30 minutes giving those artist teams the opportunity to ask you some follow-up questions about what you said or what they heard, or really to just solidify their understanding of your feelings. So hopefully that all makes sense. We're gonna try to again give you all an opportunity. My job is to make sure that everyone who's here has an opportunity to speak and be heard. We are recording this session so that our artist teams can go back and rewatch this and see if everything they heard is correct. And we're also taking very, very detailed notes about everything that's being said. As we go through this conversation, we want to give you the opportunity to participate in whatever way you feel comfortable. So if you want, when I, I'll give you kind of some leading conversation questions. If you feel comfortable just saying an answer or starting to talk, please unmute yourself and do that. If you feel more comfortable raising your hand, use the little raise hand button that should be at the bottom of your screen. It's under what's called reactions. There is a little piece that says raise hand. If you want to do that, you can do that. If you feel more comfortable just using the chat bar, just chat your comments or your questions in the chat bar, and we will get your information that way as well. So if you all feel ready to go, let's just start the conversation. And the first thing that we really want to ask you, the community, is to think of a few words to describe Dr. King himself. When you think of him and his legacy, what words come to mind? If you feel ready, unmute yourself, raise your hand, or chat in the chat bar. I'm keeping my eyes open. I'm on two screens for the raising hand. Do I see anyone?
He was humble.
He was humble. Yes, thank you.
Transformative.
Transformative. Yes, thank you. Oh, and I'm sorry, I did not mention that when you were speaking, if you don't mind, Mr. Ellington, Mr. Ward, if you don't mind just introducing yourself briefly and telling us where you're from before you speak. Mr. Ellington, let's start with you.
I'm Gene Ellington. I'm senior pastor at Constellation Baptist Church, and I am the president of the Community Economic Advancement Initiative.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ward.
Andre Ward, the Coffray Ward Corporation, resident of Avondale for 50 plus years, and also assistant pastor at the Greater St. John AME Zion Church, Avondale.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments? What words come to mind?
Hi, Alina Speed, Executive Director, Home Base Cincinnati. The word that comes to mind is courageous.
Courageous. Thank you, Alina.
Tony Moore, President, Avondale Community Council. Word would be powerful.
Powerful. Thank you, Tony.
Carol Gibbs, President, CEO of Mount Auburn Community Development Corporation, teacher.
Teacher. Thank you, Carol. Do we have any other comments?
This is Paul Booth Jr.,
Yes,
lead
thank you.
pastor, Legacy Point Church, and president of the Collective Empowerment Group. Dr. King was a bridge builder.
Dr. King was a bridge builder. Thank you. We also have some chats in the chat box. Renee Mahaffey Harris says courageous. Sharon Watkins says nonviolent. And Dr. Kareem Moncrief, I didn't get your whole name. Let me see. Moffat says innovative. Thank you. Those are all excellent words. Okay. I think that sort of sets us in the right frame of mind now to be thinking about moving forward with how we continue to honor Dr. King. And I think, so the next question I have for you is, what connection or what do you want people to know about the connection that Dr. King has to Cincinnati? What do you think is important to be reflected in this memorial? Oh, thank you. And Chandra is putting that in the chat box.
I'm not certain how you reflect it in the memorial, but as Paul Booth Sr. mentioned, he had a lot of relationships with people and particularly pastors in Cincinnati. One who in a number of different places is often forgotten, Fred Shuttlesworth. And it was Fred Shuttlesworth who brought him to Birmingham that helped begin to launch the civil rights movement. And so he had relationships with a lot of people, Damon Lynch, L.V. Booth, and James Milton, a lot of pastors. He had a lot of relationships here in Cincinnati. Otis Moss, another significant pastor and civil rights leader, was at one point in Cincinnati as well. T.L. Lane, who was a former pastor of New Prospect, where Damon Lynch III now pastors. So he had a lot of relationships in Cincinnati.
That's excellent. Thank you. Are there any other thoughts on that? Would you all just agree?
He was also ecumenical.
Speak on that for a moment. Yeah.
Sure. So while he was indeed an ordained Baptist minister of the Baptist tradition, as Gene Ellington was saying, he had relationships across the ecumenical community. And so there were members of the Jewish community that he was intrinsically involved with. And a number of them were funders and supporters of the civil rights movement. Interdenominational. So beyond Baptists, among the Protestant tradition, Methodists, Church of God in Christ, Church of God, the Episcopal Church, just any number of ecumenical bodies that he had real deep relationships with.
Sharon Watkins also says, also Al Sharpton was someone that he had a relationship with as well. Thank you, Sharon. And Dr. Kareem Moncrief Moffat says, inclusive of everyone, not just those within the churches. That's an excellent point as well. Thank you. This is wonderful information. Does anyone else want to add to this?
Yeah, I just want to add that his relationships here in Cincinnati were long and deep, as you have heard from several of the speakers. After he passed away, just about all of his family have been here to speak, primarily at the Zion Baptist Church, his children, cousins, Coretta Scott King has done a couple of concerts here when she was doing Freedom Concerts. So the relationships were very deep and very much a part of the movement that he championed and that he gave his life for.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Paul.
This is Paul Booth Jr. speaking.
Yes.
One of the things I like to see in the monument is, because of the unique connection to Cincinnati, how can we display that in a monument? You know, there's King monuments all over the country. There's streets named after King. There's all types of monuments, but how can we localize this monument to display the Cincinnati connection? And I have a very radical idea that I'll write up and I'll send in, but it would be nice to have some of the Cincinnati figures kind of inflanking Dr. King, and Dr. King being the center of the monument. I think that's really important to make this monument local to Cincinnati and to show that King connection. So I will write that vision up and I'll send it in.
Thank you, Paul. That's excellent. That's excellent.
One of the things.
Yes, go ahead, Sharon. Go ahead, Sharon.
I was
Yes.
gonna say, while he was saying that, I was thinking to have him centered and then have like north, south, east, west, pointing on every direction, because he was influential across the border, around the world. And not only with Cincinnati, but he was universal, you know. That's what I was thinking when he was saying to have that connection with him going in all directions.
Thank you, Sharon. This leads very much into our next question about, and I think, so some of these questions I teased you with a little bit last night in my email with the Zoom link and this morning. And this may have been one of them, which we're starting to sort of verge on to, which is what aspects or history of Avondale or Uptown or Cincinnati do you want to have reflected in this monument? What's important for us to know about the history of Cincinnati? And you sort of touched on this a little bit, but I want to make sure that if there is anything else that you want to add to that concept, that you can.
Yes. Interestingly enough, out of the hundreds of speeches that Dr. King gave and sermons that he gave, certainly the I Have a Dream is probably one of the most noted and probably one of the most universal. However, there is a Cincinnati universal connection, and that is the lyrics to the song We Shall Overcome was actually from a woman who is a Cincinnati native. And her work is illustrated on the side of Hirsch Recreation Center here in Avondale. And so maybe at some point or part of the design element, to the point of having a Cincinnati connection, that be some sort of a featured aspect, because it is rarely known of that relationship to the song and to Cincinnati, though everybody sings it at the end of his programs.
Right. Can I share my screen for a second? I have a picture that reflects exactly what Andre is talking about.
Yes, please do.
And there it is. You have Otis Moss, Dr. King, L.B. Booth, Fred Shuttlesworth, T.L. Lane, Reverend McCracken, and this is the lady right here who wrote the song.
And I'm sorry, what was her name?
Louise Shropshire. Louise Shropshire.
Well, that's a name to know. This is wonderful. Thank you.
So the story is that one of the places that Dr. King stayed when he would visit Cincinnati, he did visit Cincinnati many times from the early 50s. I think his last time here, as I recall, was in around 1967 when the Progressive National Baptist Convention was here. But the story is that she had written a song called "If My Jesus Wills," very similar to the words of "We Shall Overcome," and she played and sang that for him, and he mentioned something about changing the words. So that's the story, as opposed to, I think, Pete Seeger, who got credit for "We Shall Overcome."
That's really wonderful history. Thank you for bringing that up. That's a pretty big one. But is there anything else that you would want to see reflected in the monument that is in any way indicative of Dr. King's relationship with Cincinnati, Avondale, Uptown? And I don't want to put any of you on the spot, but Tony Moore or Sheila Holmes Howard, if you want to speak. I know you've been kind of quiet. Renee, Elena, Teresa Adams. If any of you want to speak, I certainly want to give you the opportunity to do that, or to put something in the chat. Carol Gibbs.
Just a couple of
have
things.
a
One,
Yeah, please. Tony, you want to start?
great, Sheila.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start. Just a couple of things. One, the collage that I think Mr. Booth spoke of, there was at least one artist who did present something to that effect, which had other individuals kind of circling Dr. King. And I'm not sure if that individual or that group is represented in the 7. But, as I thought through some of the comments that I've heard, even, for example, the word, powerful was my first thought, but I didn't hear compassionate or his passion for speech. His oratorial skills were just something that, that we all would admire, to aspire to talk like. So I thought of those things. And again, as I reflect on what I think this monument means to not just the city of the nation, but specifically to Avondale, it certainly would be great to have individuals that knew him and work with him in any form be represented in some way in Avondale.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tony. Sheila, were you getting ready to speak as well?
Yes, I had some thoughts as well. I lived in Atlanta for a little while, and of course, his monument down there has an eternal flame. Also, connecting downtown Cincinnati with Fountain Square with some type of fountain. And what Tony mentioned with people's names, maybe it could be etched in bricks, some of the foundation of whether it's a statue or a sitting area, to recognize the people in Cincinnati that knew Dr. King.
This is great. Thank you. So we're actually, you are, Sheila, you are really bringing us kind of to our next talking point, which is a little bit about the monument area itself and kind of what you envision there. And I think that we want to start with kind of a little bit of sort of some nuts and bolts about the site. And so are there any of you who go to the area, who frequent the area where it's located now? And if so, how do you get there? Do you walk there? Do you drive there? Do you bike there? Do you take public transportation? Do you just drive by it? Are there any of you who actually go to that space now?
I mean, the space where it's going to be, or
Yes, yes. Thank you for that. Yes, the space where it is going to be.
Well, there's actually not a whole lot there to go to in that space right now. But there was a time that there was, and I drive past it pretty much every day.
Yeah.
It'll stop really at this point. You'd have to park down the street on the side street and walk to that corner.
Okay, yeah. Yeah,
It's a very busy corner.
it is a very
That's a
busy.
concern. You know, how do you make it safe for people to go there, sit, reflect? I know the developer there, they had a plan of their development and it all looks like it fits, but you're coming in from their development, you know what I'm saying? From their
yeah.
walkways to their buildings and
Yeah.
retail.
How would you, assuming that in the future there is the memorial site and then there is a future development, how would you prefer to access that site in the future? Understanding that we don't know exactly what the development looks like yet.
This has been a topic of conversation, and I think, Chris, this might be a good time for you to just kind of throw around some thoughts, because this is not, even though the city did pick up on this and fund it and the whole 9 yards, a group had been actually established and working on this for about 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years prior to actually getting the money from the city. So there was a lot of discussion around that. And my latest conversation with Chris, you know, it would obviously be a great benefit for the, you know, number of people that drive through Avondale and specifically off I-71. You know, you don't just want it to be a drive-by spot. It would be great if there was the opportunity to not just see it, but then, you know, enjoy it, to take a moment, drive off, have the ability to park, you know, if you could eat something and just spend some time with history there. So again, Chris, I don't know if you want to share some additional thoughts. I'll leave it up to you.
Yeah, I'll share a few. I mean, obviously incorporating this monument into our development is the
Chris,
only way.
Could you introduce yourself, please?
I'm sorry.
Let us know
I'm
who you're
sorry.
from. That's okay.
Yeah, my name's Chris DeBrose, and I'm representing Nair Properties, and we're one of the major developers there on that particular quadrant of land. And so it's about 20 acres. FYI. Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. That's my watchdog. It's imperative for us that these two work together, right? They have to be designed together. So we are delayed due to COVID, obviously, from starting our project. However, where this sits is right on the corner, and we want to work together, whoever the chosen artist is, to ensure that the monument fits into what we're doing. And even though we're not starting, we're far enough along in our designs where we can work together to ensure that when we end up developing our property, it relates extremely well and becomes interactive for everybody. So
I think to Sheila and Tony's point, though, if it sits right there on that corner in that spot, in this heavy traffic area, people will only drive past it. You know, they won't have an opportunity to really experience it. And if it's not sort of set back where there is at least some area where people can walk up to it without being in traffic, if there's an opportunity for there to be benches around it so that people can sit, reflect. But if it's just a piece of iron on the corner, people really won't. I mean, they'll just drive past and see a statue of Martin Luther King. And if there's any etchings on it at all, the majority of people will never see it.
That's an excellent point. I think we lost. Oh, there we go. There's Chris. He's back. I think he was on dog duty.
Sorry.
But Chris, I don't know if you heard Gene Ellington's comment about you know, if it sits too close to the corner, to the traffic, that it's just going to be something people drive by. If it's set back a little bit with benches and maybe some additional space. Can you maybe comment a little bit about your feelings about that?
Yeah, some of our initial master planning of our site actually had it sitting back further in the development. It was still highly visible. Don't get me right, that's still very important, but it brought it back in so it could be away from the traffic and the noise a little bit and actually part of our overall development. So it was designed into our development. And for the artists, we can provide kind of those initial renderings and plans we have to show our thoughts for it. So yes, I totally agree. And it needs to set back and be interactive and part of what we're doing.
Thank you, Chris. And I think that you know, when we were talking a little bit earlier about not wanting to you know, just sort of pen ourselves into the idea of just working with that small space that's been identified, you know, that's part of right of way. I think that's kind of what we mean, is to really expand our minds on that. Which leads me to the next question about how you would want to use the space. We've heard you don't want it to be too close to the traffic. You don't want it to be something that people just drive by. You want it to be something that is used. And Alina, you're kind of jumping into this, and I appreciate it. She asked, does the design include lighting, a walking path to the monument, and seating? Which is an answer to what I'm about to ask you, which is how you kind of envision the space being used. Do you want it to be a space that is there are a lot of ways you can design it. Is it a public gathering space? Is it a place with seating? Is it a place for quiet reflection? Is it a place where you want it to be activated, like you want to have events there? Is it a place with sort of educational components? All of the above. So I just want to sort of throw some of those ideas out there and hear what you have to think about how you would envision using it and want to see the community using it.
I think you would want it to be an attraction, not just for local residents, but for those others who live in the area somewhere, and people coming in from out of town and visitors. It would draw to businesses in the area. And I think it would be inspirational for people, or should be.
Great. Thank you, Carol.
Would there be room to have like maybe sometimes you have those monuments and you have like small shops attached? And is there a space for like a souvenir shop that may draw the visitors and stuff to that site where they could pull over and actually go into a little shop and may have some Martin Luther King memorabilia in there? You know, I've seen that in the place, the Martin Luther King place in Atlanta, where they have the little souvenir shop. That would be nice to have something to take away, and also sell things that have the connection to Cincinnati.
They also have it in Memphis too.
Yeah.
At the Lorraine Hotel.
Yeah.
That's an excellent suggestion. Thank you. What other thoughts? How do you imagine the space being used? Do you want to reflect? Do you want to have an event? Do you want to do both?
I think that there ought to be sufficient green space. Green space, not just in the sense of environmental, but green space in the context of life and living. We memorialize Dr. King because he is dead, but his work was done while he was alive. The impact he had was based upon his life. The sacrifice he gave was his death. So we have to have something, I think, that speaks to life and it speaks to living. Bricks, stone, seating, steel, those are all very cold and inanimate, which are fine as a design piece because obviously it has to be sustainable and long lasting. But at the same time, the impact of what you're trying to experience should also speak to his life and not just the death.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
And his life has continues to inspire people too.
And if there was if there was going to be a facility like a souvenir shop or something of that nature, there could be sort of a kiosk where excerpts from some of his speeches could be played.
Yeah.
Or videos could be shown.
Yeah.
would be really, really impactful. And I think someone else used the term destination. It could become a destination depending on how much, land you want to commit to this concept.
Yeah.
It should definitely be a place of gathering, reflection, and education. And I think all the previous points have hit on that. But just a separate images came to my head in my mind. But one of them was a small, if we want to make it a destination, a small amphitheater would be nice. So that if there were tours happening in the city or say schools nearby could use it as a place where they could educate their students, or even just city tours. I think we have to make it a destination and create all those type elements as a part of it. Also, a small reflecting pool would be nice as well.
Chris, you ain't gonna have much space left when we get finished. But
this is all really, really excellent. Anyone who hasn't had a chance to give their thoughts on this, Renee, Alina, see, I'm going through my list here, going to the next screen.
No, you're okay. Very
What did I
quickly, I would
miss?
say it should be very interactive. Recently, I was in New Orleans and they had a walking tour that was in a predominantly African-American community, but they had like QR codes that you could scan, and from there it would play information, it would provide historical information, and then it would also tell you about other things that are, inside of that community that you can go and visit. And I think with so much that is happening in Avondale, that would be really neat if we could incorporate some sort of interactive activity at the monument.
Okay.
Hi, this is Renee Mahaffey Harris. I'm the president and CEO of the Center for Closing the Health Gap. And I would echo the interactivity so that our kids and families can really reflect back on the history. But I also would hope that this monument or space or place for gathering to remember who Dr. King was and how his vision and dream has yet to be realized. The positive side of how he brought everyone together, because I think that's critical, is that we're in a time in our country, in this world, that the humanity is another word I should have said about Dr. King. I think that that's what this should reflect, is what we aspire to be and to see in our city and in this country.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I also want to call out that Teresa Adams said she really wanted to call out the educational piece. She felt that this really should be a place for people to learn.
In the spirit of Dr. King being a preacher, it is Wednesday night. It is Bible study night for me, and I am going to have to leave.
Thank you. Thank you for spending this time with us.
All right. Thank you. Take care, everyone.
If you'd like to come back on Tuesday, we'd be happy to have you again.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's just switch gears a little bit. We have about 10 minutes left in this part of the conversation. I just want to switch gears to talk a little bit about art. So, we are looking at this as a public space. This is a space that will feature public art. We have a number of extremely talented artist teams who are on the line with us who really, again, I think you've given them so much to be inspired by already tonight. But let's talk a little bit about you and how you feel about art and what kind of art speaks to you. So, when you think about art and you think about the kind of art that you would want to see in this space, do you think traditional, something more modern, abstract art, historical art, street art, interactive art? Let's talk about how you envision this looking. Who wants to start this conversation? Because I think we all have very personal feelings about art.
Alina from Home Base. I think art, like music, has the ability to connect people. And so I would want to make sure that whatever happens with the design of this monument, that it pulls that connection out for those who will visit.
That's great. Thank you. Pulls the connection out. It really connects people and pulls people together. Any other thoughts about what kind of art you would like to see or not see? I mean, if there's something that you say, oh, I would really be turned off by this, I think now is the time to really make that known. Anyone?
Art is such a personal medium. I'm an art collector, and I collect all types of genres of art and all different types of art. And it is very much a personal medium, both in expression as well as the viewing of it. I was a part of a focus group, as were thousands of other folks, but I was a part of a focus group that was actually part of the input for the MLK Memorial in DC. And if anyone has visited that particular monument, it is interactive, it is educational. There's obviously a lot of land mass there that certainly can be worked with. But one of the things that was a part of the design feature is that it was overwhelming, that the monument itself is overwhelming, which gives a message and feeling of how grand and how large in stature Dr. King was. Though a small man by physical standing, he was very overwhelming in terms of his presence. The other thing in terms of the interactivity, one of the design features was not just to visualize him, but that people could see themselves in the monument, in the presence. There are now thousands, millions of people who have taken photos and found literally the perfect spot to take a selfie where the entire King monument is behind them and they see themselves in their own photo.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was a part of the design feature to share how overwhelming the movement was, but how people actually saw themselves personally as a part of the movement.
Well, one of the things I think is really important is that when you visit the monument or see it from a distance, you immediately know what you're looking at. I think when you get to some of the different types of art, you'll roll by it and a week later you'll say, that's what that was. And I don't think that's what we want this to be.
So you want people to know immediately what it is? Is that what you're saying? Not that they will drive by and then realize later what it was.
Exactly. That's
okay.
Just my opinion. Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I understood you correctly.
Yes.
On that topic, so that story about the King Monument in DC is wonderful, and yes, the concept of people. I have seen a lot of those selfies of people seeing themselves in the monument, as you said. I think though that we don't necessarily want our monument, Cincinnati's monument, to necessarily be exactly like someone else's. So what is it about that we could incorporate here in Cincinnati, or some way that we could make sure that Cincinnati's memorial is different from those and really stands out as being exceptionally Cincinnati? Joelle, you have your hand up. Do you want to speak on that?
Yeah, I think one of the things that really needs to be considered is the scale of the environment that surrounds the site. As you all know, there's a lot of traffic and large scale buildings. And so I think the environment is going to be important to the experience. So thinking about as you're finalizing your design ideas and concepts, you know, thinking about the car user, how they see the site, how do you draw people in if you're just passing by? If you're on a bike, how do you invite somebody to come through the space or walk through the space? So I think it's going to have both appeal from a distance as well as an intimate experience. And I think that some of, you know, that's going to be a challenge, I think, because of where it is, because of the traffic. But I think in some ways it's an exciting challenge to really solve that from a user experience perspective and making it, you know, have great memory for somebody who is visiting our city or the Uptown District.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Joelle.
Sure.
Also, I neglected to see that Maxine Gray wanted to say that art of past events is really important. Maxine, do you want to speak to that personally, or just let your comment stand as it is?
Hi, Chris. Actually, just thinking about the things that happened when I was a kid, what impacted me was seeing Dr. King standing in Washington and all of this multitude of people surrounding that area, and how it was just so overwhelming. And just looking at the monument that Andrea was making comments about in Washington, how big and overwhelming that one is now. It has lights that illuminate it at night. You know, even our Black soldiers downtown. I didn't know all that when I walked through that display and seen all the bronze on the walls, and you know, it's talking about from frame to frame how all of that transpired. It was educational. It was, you know, somewhere you could reflect. So all of those types of things are something just to think about. But just looking at the past events, whether it be water hoses and dogs, things that we don't want to remember, but it was part of the experience back in those days. So just a little thought on that.
Thank you, Maxine. I appreciate that. So are there any other thoughts about how to distinguish Cincinnati's memorial to Dr. King from others that are out there? Okay, so we have just a couple of minutes left before we want to give the artists the opportunity to ask you all some questions. So I'm just going to ask you one last question. If you bear with me, just everybody close your eyes. And when you close your eyes and you imagine the future memorial, it is built. We've had the grand opening. Everyone has seen it. You are there on site. What do you see? What do you see? Does anyone want to either open their eyes or keep them closed and tell me what you see?
I know for myself, I would like to see hope when I see the memorial, because I think Dr. King definitely was like a figure and a pillar of hope for everybody, whether you were Black, white, doesn't matter. I think he was definitely a pillar of hope.
Thank you, Shantae. That was lovely. We have hope. What else do you see? Conceptual or physical?
I think it would just be amazing to have a visitor leave Cincinnati and say, wow, that was an incredible memorial. I haven't seen anything like that before.
Thank you. Joelle, I think that's what we're all trying to do.
I also would hope, Chris, that it would inspire unity and a sense of peace. I think Cincinnati is a great city, but we still have our issues with racism and things of that nature. And one thing Dr. King was famous for, of course, as you know, is unifying people. So I think just walking away from that monument feeling that we're all important and inspired by him.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Anyone else? Andre, Tony, Carol, Sharon?
It should be a place where, whether you're walking or driving, bicycling, however you get there, the way it looks has got to be impactful. And for me right now, trying to visualize where it's proposed to be with what's there right now, even with the development not built, it's difficult to try to envision some calm, peaceful area. But if Chris and his project can incorporate it where it does, I don't think it necessarily has to be seen from you driving, but that there is ample or visual signage or something like that to let you know that it is there, but it's in a safer spot, you know, and where they're going to have access for parking inside his project, then you're anticipating going there. It's almost like the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center. You see the building, but you know inside is the joy, and getting to park and go in to a place. Driving by, you don't really see anything, but what's inside is what's important. So I don't know if it should be some kind of signage out there on the corner to let you know what's there and how to get into park and then walk into the structure. That might be something to visualize, because you're going to walk or drive by, but you need to be able to stop somewhere to enjoy it. You don't want to stop in traffic, right? So it has to lead you to the exhibit.
But I think that's one reason it's really important that Chris's team work directly with the artists, and they kind of together come up with what they think will work best for the site, and then see if everybody's kind of on the same page, because that's going to be really important.
Well, I would love to see living things like cherry trees that blossom in the spring, or maples that have beautiful colors in the fall, or things that are living and draw people in and make them relax.
Yeah. I do want to read off Teresa Adams' comment. We want to leave and remember. This is similar to what Joelle said. It has been 10 years since seeing the DC monument, and I still see it in my mind. Yeah.
I have selfies too, so from
I love it.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
So you asked I was thinking about something. I'll share with you two aspects. I think the easiest thing to imagine is a statue. I don't think that is distinctive. I think statues are expected. From an architectural standpoint, and Chris certainly not playing in your space or getting in your lane, I think that when thinking about how that can be incorporated, buildings can also be reflective, whether that is by glass or by steel. They can be reflective. And maybe there is something in the architectural design of your project that is incorporating both whatever the design elements are of the monument and that space, that it is also reflective, so that it is not just, here is the monument and there is this development that it sits in, right? And so when things are reflective, they become one, as opposed to distinctive, and people see them as separate elements.
That's a great comment, Andre. Thank you. All right, so we are, it's a little after, it's about 7 after 7. I want to, and again, Teresa said it's the entire area of the DC design that she remembers, and she agrees with that comment. So this has been a fantastic conversation. I found it to be really wonderful and inspiring. I hope our artists have found it inspirational as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to shift gears a little bit and give our artists the opportunity to ask you all some questions. If there are any follow-ups, if there's anything, artists, that you've heard that you want to learn more about. And by the way, I don't know if we mentioned this before, but there will be a survey that we'll be sending out tomorrow, just to ask you some demographic questions, but then also to ask you if you are willing to have an artist team follow up with you after this meeting. Obviously, that is totally optional. You are not required to allow people to contact you. But if that is something that you're willing to do, we will ask you to give us your preferred contact information, and we'll share that with the artists who will be able to reach out to you and maybe dig deeper into your story or ask you a little bit more about your opinions. But they are going to ask some questions right now, and I'm just going to go down the list. There's a sort of a designated representative for each artist group, and I'm just gonna start with Anna Covaria. Did I pronounce your last name correctly? Anna? Is she on the call? I thought I saw her come in
She's
earlier.
on, Catherine, but she's muted.
I'm muted. Yeah, here I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Anna. Thank you. Do you have any questions based on what you heard tonight, and asking people to give you a little bit more information?
Well, I think, thank you very much for a lot of information we heard about. My husband Jeff and we are like a Siamese twin of the sculpture. We worked together for over 30 years, so we can, synergy speaking. And I think you guys give us a lot of information. We're just listening. I think public monument, we have to reflect what audience we can communicate with our work. So if you have any question, you can give us question to us. Any question?
Does anyone have any questions for Anna? Anna, thank you for being here. We will be sure, of course, to share all of this with you. I also just want to read, just so that you all are hearing this kind of in real time. There are a couple of comments that came through recently after we had the conversation about close your eyes and what you see. Sharon Watkins said, I would love to see a waterfall surrounded by a sitting wall and flowers. Flowers represent peace and MLK go hand in hand. Maxine Gray said, Dr. Booth mentioned a reflective pool, I think possibly a fountain. And then Jeff Stein mentioned that he believes that the March on Montgomery began by Dr. King meeting others beneath a sycamore tree, and that perhaps incorporating a sycamore or even obtaining a cutting of that tree might be nice. So all really excellent comments. Well, thank you, Anna. Thank you for being here, and we will definitely share everything that we've learned with you tonight. Our next artist is John Hare. John, I believe I saw you earlier. Are you still with us?
Yes,
John, he is. John, if you want to unmute yourself, and if there are any questions you have.
Could I ask a question of Chris?
Sure. Chris DeBrosi from Nair Development.
Right. We just received a site plan of your development, right? And I took the drawing that the city had provided of the actual architectural site that we're going to be putting our monument on and overlap them. And there's no way that they line up. You said you had some kind of drawing that would show us exactly how much area we have to work with besides the corner and then the land behind that, which looks like some kind of a plaza area right now?
Yes, I can work with Catherine and get a site plan that shows the area that's shown on our site plan.
That would be great because that's really the first time we've seen that. We all thought we were just working on this tiny little corner.
Right. Understood.
Thank you.
Yep.
In all fairness to everyone who's been on the team so far, I don't think that they were aware that there was some work that was previously going on discussing this. And we just learned about this last week after connecting with Chris on this to make sure he was going to be here tonight. So we're very fortunate that we have that background now, and also that Chris is so willing to be such a wonderful partner on this. And he has been for a long time. Chris was very involved previously with efforts to try to get a memorial to this site. So thank you, Chris. Our next speaker, and I apologize if I mispronounce your name. Is it Akwi Hopen? I'm sorry if I butchered your name. Please unmute yourself, and let us know how to pronounce your name. I see you there.
Right here.
Thank you.
I too hope.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Eager to speak. I too hope.
I chew. Thank you very much.
It's like when you sneeze or when you exhale, happy. I chew. I'm really inspired by all of you and just incredible, such a feast of great visions. Everybody have the vision is like a pearl and a jewel, and they are very overwhelmingly powerful. I heard a few comment about DC monument. We think about the site, and thank you, Chris, for willing to work with artists that setting back some space is really wonderful because we do need some reflective space. So we'd like to know is how much you all attach to the existing landscape. Do you want the site to be erased and we can just do everything from anew, or you think it's important to preserve this beautiful hardscape so the artist just ambition on it, beautify it without erasing it? And then if Chris can generously give us more land so we can sit back, so have a space for gathering, is that possible? That would be great. So I would like to know is how much you all attached to the existing landscape.
Does anyone want to answer that? I feel like we've heard that maybe a little bit tonight, but does anyone want to specifically address that? I think what you're asking, Aichu, is what's there now, sort of the stone and brick that's there now, if people are attached to that, or if that can be changed. Is that what you're asking? Yes.
I heard that city spent $75,000 and the design is actually very beautiful. And I like to know if you are very much attached to the hardscape, we will try to preserve it as much as possible and adding beautify features, and so that we can save the limited resource for building a big monument, because $1 million, is limit. Washington, DC, that is $100 million budget. So we want to really build up in a scale that's competitive.
Anyone from the community want to answer that question? How attached you are to what's there now?
Well, if you're talking about just the little corner that's there now, we're not attached to that at all. I mean, it's just, again, my opinion. So we would certainly be flexible, but I think that when you talk about expanding the dollars, for example, one of the difficulties is that even if you have private money, you've got government money in this, and that makes it a little bit more complicated when you, I guess, try to financially enlarge this project. So I guess the city would have to speak on that, but we kind of got that impression once the city dropped their money into this project that it's our show, and you know, we want to hear from you, but it's our show. So
If I could add another question, Mr. DeBruzy.
I'm sorry, could you speak up a little bit?
If I could ask a question of Mr. DeBruzy,
So,
the
sir-
environment.
Sir, if we could just, let's get through all of the artists, since we have
Okay.
Aichu as your official spokesperson. Let's get through all the artists once, and then we'll come back to you.
Okay.
But I do want to give Chris or anyone else from the community the opportunity to answer that question about how tied you are to the hardscape that's there now.
From a developer perspective, I think you have to look at the site as a blank slate. Personally. So I'm not tied to it at all. I think it limits what can be done because you have to fit into a box, a circle that fits there. I think you have to start over.
Ditto. I think that if you, and I hope this is answering the previous artist's question, if you only work with what has already been set as a foundation, then you've already limited what possibilities you're going to have.
Yeah. Great, thank you. So let's move on to Sydney Fine. Sydney from Artworks. I think I saw you earlier. Are you still with us, Sydney?
I'm here.
Yes, you are. Thank you.
Hello.
Do you have any questions?
Well, first, similar to the other artists, I just want to thank everyone on this call for all of these really beautiful ideas. And I've learned so much from just sitting here tonight. So thank you so much for sharing that knowledge. I have a question that actually goes a little bit beyond the design and, or I should say, it's like the after we were just participant design proposal. I'm curious if the community is interested in there being elements in terms of the building of this monument that the community gets to be a part in the physical manifestation of it. Or is that something that you think wouldn't be as much of an interest?
So Sydney, just to clarify, in the actual physical creation of the site, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. Does anybody want to answer that? Have a hand in its building.
you mean in the Nair project itself, or just the monument portion of the?
Thinking about the monument portion or the landscaping of it, to have community hands involved.
Okay.
In the making of it.
Understanding the engagement of arts works and how it is a community-based organization as well. I think that's a brilliant concept that people in the community might be able to say, I had a hand in building this, or that I had a part in creating this. I think what we're doing now, certainly in terms of our voices through focus group, is one way to contribute. But I think you're talking about a physical involvement.
Yeah.
And I think that is, for the residents of this community, I've been here 50 years, for someone to ask us to physically be involved is a novel change.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. And anyone else want to chime in on that?
I will. So with the Cincinnati Children's new addition building, the one that's the critical care tower, there was an incredible art program there. And I know I had the pleasure of working with many of the Avondale youth to create a mural in that building. So I know there's a lot of artists in the community and that neighborhood specifically that I think would be really excited to be engaged in the process. So if, that ends up being something that happens later, I think there's a lot of people in that community that could help to lead that charge. And we can connect you to some of those people.
Great. Thank you,
Yeah,
Joelle.
from Avondale's voice, we would absolutely love it. We just don't know how to make that, make that reality. So it's not that we certainly would have no interest. We would love to be able to participate, especially from the youth to the elderly. So
Yeah, it's interesting to think about, to then consider how to go about designing it to enable that participation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sydney. That's a great question. Let's move on to Marlon Hall. Marlon is the speaker for Gordon Huther and Partners. Marlon, are you with us? Or Gordon, are you planning to speak?
Yeah,
in Marlon's place?
Marlon. Yeah, so Marlon just had to jump off just now. So
Right.
Marlon and myself, we don't really have any questions right now. We just wanted to express our gratitude for everyone's time and well, just to consider us as one of the artist teams to come up with something that's needs to be so powerful and relevant to the community. So just want to express some gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gordon. Michael Coppage, are you here? My understanding is that you are here for Black Art Speaks.
Yes.
Michael, you still, yeah, there you are.
Here.
Great.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Kopaj. I'm
thank you.
with Team Black Art Speaks. This conversation with the community has actually made me more confident about our design, and which kind of leads to my two-part question. The first part of the question is, were you guys given access to the design proposals? Because a lot of the conversation that we've had on this call in regards to what folks would like to see, I would say our design includes about 90% of it, if not more. And then the other piece was to Mr. DeBrosi, the building that everyone is talking about. I'm wondering what kind of building is it? Is it mixed use? Is it business? Is it apartments, industry? What is that building going to look like? What kind of people are going to be in and out of it on a regular basis, like tenants or employees or?
Yeah, so the site is totally a mixed use project. Closest to the monument where proposed, we have an office building, a hotel, and some retail.
Okay. And then from anyone from the community, were you guys given access to the proposals? Because I don't know. It seems like we could have had more tailored questions if that were the case.
I did see the proposals.
Okay.
Now, Tony, you are Shantae, I don't know if you want to chime in here, but I believe Tony is a non-voting member of the committee, but not everybody who is on this call is open to the public.
Right. So we have, I think, about 7 or so non-voting members who are a part of the Avondale community or who have had some experience with the past MLK memorial that we had. So we asked them to be a part of our committee as non-voting members. So the non-voting members were the only ones who have had access to the proposals. The solicitation, if I can break it down a little bit, is very discreet in terms of sharing proposal information outside of the core people who've been given permission to view the proposals, to kind of just keep it, I don't know what the word is, but just to keep it, Catherine, help me with the word. Whatever that word is, just kind of keep it in circle until we finally select the artist, pretty much.
I think that you have, I think that I'm not knowing your exact processes. I mean, I think that you have sort of an official process that you have to follow to keep it fair.
Yes.
And that's what you've been trying to do. And this community engagement is part of the process, as it has been in other in other processes where the city has designed some sort of a public facility or a piece of public art. Am I fair to say that, Shantae?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, great.
Yeah, well, thank you for the time and the opportunity to ask a question.
Thank you for being here, Michael. We appreciate it.
This is Jeff Stein. I'd like to clarify.
Yes, please
just
do.
so everybody knows, what we've received so far was from a request for qualifications. So no one's received a design proposal per se yet. What we've received was qualifications, what the artist had done in the past, their portfolio of selected works, things like that. So I just wanted to make sure that no one thinks that we've already got proposals submitted and everything.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that clarification. And tonight is part of the process to hopefully provide our artists with inspiration to put those proposals together. Is it fair to say that, Jeff? Jeff's shaking his head yes.
That's correct.
Great. And we hope it has done that. We do have one more official speaker for a group, and then we can open it up. I do want to be mindful of people's time. It is a little before 7:30. We're happy to stay here as long as you'd like us to, but let's get the opportunity for David Wilson from Albritton Lee to have the opportunity to ask a question. David, I thought I saw you. If you could unmute yourself, please.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you so much for the introduction. David Wilson again of Albritton Lee LLC. We are very honored to be present and take in all this wonderful community feedback. Community engagement is a pillar of our process. Before we even start to try to actualize what an image of a public art element could be, we understand that once we leave that area, that piece is going to remain in that neighborhood, in that community. So we understand that engagement really helps drive what an authentic piece of art can look like. And I know one of the artists earlier asked along a similar question about how maybe that could look in some type of structure. And we wanted to think about how, if you had any initial feedback for us as a team and the overall group as well, when it comes to the engagement component, is there a particular aspect of the engagement component you'd like to see focused on the youth of Cincinnati? Because we do understand Dr. King's message, was something that was not just for that time and that era and that space, but he was trying to convey a message of what he saw for a brighter future. And that ties directly into the youth from all the way back to when he was present and to the youth that we're, experiencing and living with now. So are there any aspects of a community engagement process that you'd like to see specifically tailored towards the youth of Cincinnati?
Excellent question, David. Anyone from the community want to unmute or chat about this?
I would hope, Teresa or Sheila would like to go ahead and respond. I yield, but I don't want to think my voice is the only one that's, willing to speak. I know they're good. They're good at what they do. So
I would say that having something that's educational, like Teresa had mentioned, incorporated in this design, someplace where the youth can be interactive, where they can, like Andre said, hear his voice, hear some excerpts, have some teaching going on around it some kind of way. That would definitely draw the youth and be a very good educational piece. Our history, our Black history is important, and it will always be. And we want to continue to share our history. So if that can be incorporated some kind of way, I think that's really good. Thanks for bringing that up.
You know, I think that the artist that brings all of the elements that are passionate, that are important, that the community sees as what they feel in this project. And, you know, that could have been a one of your elements that others didn't think of, that you bring back to the community and to the committee in general, that says, this is really the type of guy we want to work with. So I think it's whatever you bring. You know, you've heard the community's comments and, you know, some of the city's comments. And I think that it's up to the artist to bring back what will get us drawn to you. You know, you're hearing what we want, and however you best present that back to us is going to most likely be the one that we, even as the non-voting members, say that's what we want. You know, that we'll try to emphasize in a strong way to the city that that's what best represents, you know, the feeling and what we'd like to see in the monument. So some of those secrets you might want to keep to yourself.
And I'd just like to add too that I think somebody had mentioned earlier, you know, history specific to our community. We have the Harriet Beecher Stowe House. We have the National Underground Railroad museum, and there's a lot of local history, I think, that you could really think about as part of the story that you want to tell in the work. So I think, you know, those would be great, great to connect back to, I think, as well, from a historical perspective.
And Teresa just said we would like to make sure all the truth is displayed in all aspects. Did I get that? Did I say that correctly, Teresa? Yes. Thank you, Teresa.
She's usually not this quiet.
Oh, right.
Well, sometimes the chat just works better depending on what your situation is. That's a lovely thing. She says she has a problem with her speaker. Yeah. Okay. We've all been there.
Okay.
We've all been there. Okay. So,
Catherine, if I could address David just real quick.
Yeah, of course, ma'am.
According to his question, basically, whatever David and the other artists that could do to make the youth dream, you know, I think that that's important. I think our young people, we want them to be wide-eyed and glowing when they walk away from this monument. That there is more to me than meets the eye if I can just dream. So I just wanted to throw that out, David. Thank you.
No, that's great feedback. Thank you so much. And thank you all for your feedback on that. Catherine, can I just have one small follow-up question?
Sure.
Okay, great. In the sense of what the piece could look like, is there any particular color or texture that resonates with you as a community stakeholder group? Would you like to see a particular pattern, or again, a color or a certain texture be a predominant design feature of the public art element or elements, plural?
Anyone? Predominant color or texture?
The answer is, well, again, the previous committee had an idea, but I think it's really up to the artist, what you bring forth that you think will be the most appealing, exciting, you know, and all those other good words, is totally going to be, it's totally going to be up to you. So you know, some of the things that we considered the previous committee was that, you know, you have things like maintenance. I mean, all those things are important, you know, the weather itself, again, so without trying to relive some work that we had previously done, I would just encourage each artist to do what they do best. You know, there's different textures in what's being presented tonight from what not actually presented, but each of these artists may do something a little different. Some do it in bronze, some do it in stone. So again, you know, you're probably going to do what you do best, and then bring that back to the community and the city. So
Great words, Tony. So we're a
Thank
little
you.
past 7:30. Those of you who have to leave, we understand. I think we want to give, you know, artists a couple more opportunities to ask questions. I know you had one more question that you wanted to get in, and then any other artists who have any additional follow-up questions for those who are still able to stay. So did you want to ask your additional question? I know your team had one more thing to ask.
Well, it was partially answered, but I'm interested in a sort of a landscape space around the memorial. At one point, that space will transition into the plaza at Mr. DeBrosi's development. And I'm wondering, you know, as a kind of like a mat around the painting, there's should be a space, a separation space. And I'm very interested in your anticipated footprint for where your plaza may overlap the landscape, you know, with this transition space, to give room for the monument to be the monument and the development to be the development over there. How many meters are we talking about? How many yards away?
We like to know more specific when you get chance, so we can know how we can sit back, how far we can sit back. So if you can let us to know the footprint allowed to have the monument. We know the focus is on the monument, and we want to use the limited resource to build the monument, and then let you take care of the surrounding, you know, the design of the painting, and we do the main thing of the monument. Backdrop is very important.
No, agreed. And I'll work with Catherine to provide the footprint of what we have available.
Thank you.
Now, if you can please to show the footprint allowed for the monument as well. The footprint for the plaza and the footprint for the monument, so we know where is the line we cannot cross, where is the space we can be thriving.
In your development plan, do you envision landscaping around your building?
Include?
Not to any great extent, because a lot of it will be on top of a parking garage. But the initial space we'll provide you will be outside of those bounds. So, and we'll show that on the plan. Great questions though.
Okay, great. Thank you so
Chris.
much.
Yep.
Thank you, Chris. Are there any, we are losing quite a few people. So I just want to give the artists one final opportunity to ask a question. We will make sure that all of the artists get the information from Chris DeBrosi. That will not come from me. That will come from Shantae. Remember, we are trying to keep the process official. So it'll come from Shantae for sure, but we will get something to you. So Chris, if you don't mind sending something to me, that'd be great. Any final burning questions from the artists? And then again, remember, artists, that our participants are going to have the opportunity to give their permission for you to follow up with them at a later date. So if you wish to do that, that's an option for you too.
By the way, we are open to any follow-up. We have my website, ituhopen.com, and you can email us any question you have. We really welcome any input, and they are all inspirations. And we want to thank Chris for willing work with artists. We definitely need you as a painter, you know, to frame the whole thing beautifully together.
Okay. All right, Chandra, are we ready to wind down?
Sure, yeah. So this is just a reiteration of our next steps. We have another community engagement session next week. So if you know community members or friends or family that you can talk to about your sharing tonight and your ideas, and please share that information. It's the same registration link that you used to get here tonight. The more the merrier. The artist will be on that call as well to listen. Community engagement on this project will be done at the end of the month. The designs are due June 1st with an award planned for the end of June. And again, the goal is to unveil this with the 60th anniversary of the I Have a Dream speech. So just a reminder, Catherine has said it a few times, there's going to be a post-event survey. We ask you to fill it out. Inside of that survey will also be the opportunity to share your contact information with the artists so that if they have some follow-up questions, they'll want to get some more feedback from you. And we're asking them to do that by the end of April. So you have a window. And then again, share the information. But finally, thank you so much. You guys have been wonderful. This has been a really great discussion. I lived in Cincinnati my whole life. I learned a lot tonight, and I'm sure the artists learned a ton about us, about Cincinnati, about Avondale, about the people on this call. And I'm just really, I was already excited about this. I'm even more excited, and I can't wait till next week's discussion. And then I just like want to there'll be like a Chandra-sized hole in the door because I just want to get moving on it. So just thank you, everybody. And if you have any questions, please let us know. You'll probably get an email from us tomorrow with the follow-up survey information and a contact information for follow-up as well.
I have a quick question. So on 6/1, you're asking for the preliminary design submittals. So how will the community and everyone get to see those submittals and then give their opinion / feedback on those submittals?
So I will probably have to kick this to Shantae a little bit, but the artists are going to be scored on their incorporation of these community feedback sessions and attending those feedback sessions in the ultimate scoring of their design in the selection process. The selection process, I believe, is because it's a government procurement process. It is governed by city and state laws. So we are not, unfortunately, able to share out for public input final designs. We're still under a confidentiality clause in the procurement process during that time. And so we are not able to publicly say, here are the designs, what do you all think about it? So that's why it's really, and also frankly, public engagement, if the design's already cooked and you're getting engagement, you've done it at the wrong time. We're doing it at the right time by giving them the feedback from the community before they start designing. Shantae, do you have anything to add to that?
No, you pretty much said it all. Those who are on the non-voting committee, they'll be able to see that, and they are supposed to be kind of the spokespeople for the community. That's why we have them on there. So hopefully the feedback they give us, those who are voting, I won't be voting, but the rest of them who will be voting, they should be able to give us like helpful input to decide. Also, we have I believe the director from the Martin Luther King Jr. Intellectual Property team. They'll also be having a hand in looking at the different types of designs that come in. And they'll also have a little bit of a say on, which ones they might like a little bit better or not, just as a FYI to the community.
All right, great, thank you.
Well, I guess, Catherine, unless you have anything else, or Shantae, I guess that's a wrap. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
See you next time.
Bye.